Hare Krishna. Somebody can please lead the invocation prayers. Hare Krishna. Somebody.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Go ahead, Archana.
Om Ajnanatirimandasya Dhyananjana-shalakaya Chakshur-anvitam Yene Tasmai Shri Guru Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitanam Yene Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaham Tadati Swayam Padantikam Vande Aham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavacha Shri Rupam Sagarjatam Sahagana Raghunantam Vintam Tam Sajivam Sadvitam Savahutam Parijanam Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Divyam Shri Radha Krishna Pradam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitam Chamcha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisa Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Kancana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Devi Pranami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhayyase Kripa Sindhu Evache Patitanam Pavane Bhoi Vaishnava Bhoi Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you all for coming. So, quick announcement that His Grace Chetan Chandas is going to be in Toronto for this week, including today. So, Shalini Gopal Krishna from the other batch is coordinating, and you all can consider to collectively go and meet with him and thank him and explain to him one or two analogies from his lectures that have stuck on you. And you can consider to give him some Lakshmi as reciprocation, but that's up to you. So connect with Shalini to see if you can all go and meet with him together. I mean, if you cannot go together, by all means, you can go and meet with him separately. He knows about our class. Many devotees in the past have met him, and he's pretty pleased with the way we hear his lectures and do these classes. All right, so today we will first aim to cover Canto 1, chapters 18 and 19 and finish this Canto 1 so that from next class we can do the Bhagavad Gita revisions. For Bhagavad Gita revisions, devotees from other batches are also planning to join. And today, if time permits, I will answer inquiries. If not, I will answer inquiries in our upcoming classes. So, Shivangi.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I just had a question. Next week with the Bhagavad Gita revisions, will the class still be the same time, like 2 hours, or would it be shorter?
It probably will be 1.5 hour length, except for say chapter 2 will be slightly longer. So how we'll be doing it is that we will first read the chapter translation. So chapter 1 we'll read the translations, will take about 20 minutes. Then devotees will present. So for chapter 1 it's Pragya. Pragya will present for about 10 minutes or so. And then I will present for about 10 minutes. So that takes about 40-45 minutes for one chapter, depending on somebody may have striking points and inquiries to mention. About 45 minutes you can say for one chapter. And chapter 2 could be a little longer, but generally it will be 1.5 hour length, plus minus few minutes here or there. Shivangi.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
All right. So chapter 18 is titled Parikshit Maharaj Cursed by Brahmana Boy. Sridhar Swami, a prominent Acharya in disciplic succession, writes his commentary that chapter 18 describes the curse of Brahmana boy onto Parikshit Maharaj. Parikshit Maharaj took the curse as mercy of the Lord and became truly renounced. In chapter 17, we discussed that Parikshit Maharaj punished Kali and then allowed to stay in the kingdom in the 5 places, which are basically against the regulative principles. Now, question may be asked that why Parikshit Maharaj did not kill Kali if he knew that Kali is going to cause havoc? The answer is that because Kali surrendered to Parikshit Maharaj, the duty of king is to protect. Plus, it's a Vaishnava principle also to give protection to everyone. And further, that Parikshit Maharaj did not want to interfere with the cycle of time and the cycle of the material world creation being the plan of the Lord. Plus, in this chapter 18, in verse number 7, we'll soon discuss that, yes, Kali has a lot of bad effects, but those bad effects manifest only when somebody actually does the bad activity. In other yugas, you can just think of the bad activity and you will get the bad reaction. Plus, in Kali Yuga, if you actually think of a good activity or that you want to help somebody, you get the good benefit whether or not you do the activity. So yes, there are a lot of bad effects, bad omens, but there is also a good advantage of Kali, of course, to also chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra as the shortest process to go back home to Godhead. Chapter 18 is divided into 4 parts. Part 1 is verses 1 to 9. Sutta Goswami summarizes Parikshit Maharaj's birth and activities. Part 2 is verses 10 to 23. Sutta Goswami and sages discuss nectar of Krishna Katha. Part 3, verses 24 to 31. Parikshit Maharaj gets angry at Shamik Rishi. Part 4, verses 32 to 50. Parikshit Maharaj, cursed by Brahmana boy, and Shamik Rishi regrets and prays for the Brahmana boy. The first 6 verses are straightforward, setting the base. We'll read the translations only. Is our dear Devraj able to read verse 1 to 6 translations?
No problem, I'll read. Hare Krishna, chapter 18, Maharaj Parikshit cursed by Brahmana boy. Verse 1, translation. Sri Sutta Goswami said, due to the mercy of the personality of a Godhead, Sri Krishna, who act wonderfully, Maharaj Parikshit thought, struck by the weapon of a son of Drona in his mother womb, could not be burned. Text 2. Furthermore, Maharaj Parikshit was always consciously surrendered to the personality of a Godhead, and therefore he was neither afraid nor overwhelmed by fear due to the snake bird which was to bite him because of the fury of Brahmana's boy. Text 3. Furthermore, after leaving all his association, the king surrendered himself as a disciple to the son of Vyasa, Sukadeva Goswami, and thus he was able to understand the actual position of the personality of a godhead, and at last gave up his material body on the bank of Ganges. Text 4. This was so because those who have dedicated their lives to the transcendental topic of a personality of a godhead, of whom the Vedic hymns sing, and whom are constantly engaged in remembering the lotus feet of a Lord, do not run the risk of having misconception even at the last moment of their life. Text 5. As long as the great powerful son of Abhimanyu remains the emperor of a world, there is no chance that the personality of Kali will flourish. Text 6. The very day and the moment the personality of a Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, left this earth, the personality of Kali, who promotes all kind of irreligious activity, come into his world. Hare Krishna.
So last week we had this question about why did Parikshit Maharaj let Kali flourish? And verse number 6 is the direct answer, that Kali did not flourish from the time when Parikshit Maharaj became king or later. Kali actually started from the time Lord Shri Krishna left this earth. So these are pretty straightforward verses setting the stage. Now, verse number 7 explains the advantages of Kali. Divya, 7 translation plus purport, as well as 8 and 9 translation.
Hare Krishna, text 7 translation. Maharaja Parikshit was a realist, like the bees who only accept the essence of a flower. He knew perfectly well that in this age of Kali, auspicious things produce good effects immediately, whereas inauspicious acts must be actually performed to render effects. So he was never envious of the personality of Kali. Purport. The age of Kali is called the fallen age. In this fallen age, because the living beings are in an awkward position, the Supreme Lord has given some special facilities to them. So, by the will of the Lord, a living being does not become a victim of a sinful act until the act is actually performed. In other ages, simply by thinking of performing a sinful act, one used to become a victim of the act. On the contrary, the living being in this age is awarded with the results of pious acts simply by thinking of them. Maharaja Parikshit, being the most learned and experienced king by the grace of the Lord, was not unnecessarily envious of the personality of Kali because he did not intend to give him any chance to perform any sinful act. He protected his subjects from falling prey to the sinful acts of the age of Kali, and at the same time, he gave full facility to the age of Kali by allotting him some particular places. At the end of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that even though all nefarious activities of the personality of Kali are present, there is a great advantage in the age of Kali. One can attain salvation simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Thus, Maharaja Parikshit made an organized effort to propagate the chanting of the Lord's holy name. Thus, he saved the citizens from the clutches of Kali. It is for this advantage only that great sages sometimes wish all good for the age of Kali. In the Vedas also, it is said that by discourse on Lord Krishna's activities, one can get rid of all the disadvantages of the age of Kali. In the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is also said that by the recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Supreme Lord becomes at once arrested within one's heart. These are some of the great advantages of the age of Kali, and Maharaja Parikshit took all the advantages and did not think any ill of the age of Kali, true to his Vaishnavite cult. Text 8 translation. Maharaja Parikshit considered that less intelligent men might find the personality of Kali to be very powerful, but that those who are self-controlled would have nothing to fear. The king was powerful like a tiger and took care for the foolish, careless persons. Text 9 translation. O sages, as you did ask me, now I have described almost everything regarding the narrations about Lord Krishna in connection with the history of the pious Maharaja Parikshit.
So even though Kali is full of fault, there are still auspiciousness. In this age of Kali, auspicious acts produce good effects immediately, simply by thinking. You don't even have to wait to act. Whereas inauspicious acts must be actually performed to render effects. In other ages, simply by thinking of performing a sinful act, one used to become a victim of that act. On the contrary, a living being in this age is awarded with results of pious acts simply by thinking of the pious acts that, okay, I want to help someone. And this is also the reason why Parikshit Maharaj did not kill Kali. Plus, of course, we all read that as a very shortened, simplified process of chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra awards you highest spiritual destination of returning back home to Godhead. So a lot of advantages, and Prabhupada explains, and this was one of the question when we reach question answer session, that Prabhupada explained in the purport for verse number 6 that if you chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, if you discuss Krishna Katha, then Kali is nowhere around you. And Prabhupada has this theme as a very top line on Back to Godhead magazine, that where there is Krishna, there is no room for Maya. Or the other way, it also says that wherever there is sun, there is no room for darkness. Now, Kali could not exert its power on a dhira. So those who are self-controlled, means those who are dhira, they have nothing to fear about Kali, because Kali cannot exert its power on sadhu. Questions, comments, realizations? Mayank?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So related to this last statement you mentioned, so you mentioned about some cases, right, where it impacts sadhus and other people who are less self-controlled probably. So how does it work actually?
How does work what? Meaning?
So the impact of Kali on
So
some sadhus and like other people less.
Yeah, it's not sadhus, it's those who are not 100% Krishna conscious, meaning those who are not dhira. Kali impacts on and has all the negative effects. But somebody who is fully Krishna conscious, like our dear Srila Prabhupada, material nature and Kali never touched Srila Prabhupada. Because Prabhupada was always under the shelter of Krishna. And therefore, Prabhupada says in the purport we just read, purport 6, not 6, purport 7, that wherever there is Krishna, meaning you discuss Krishna Katha, you chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, is identical to Krishna being present. Kali is not there. Prabhu.
Okay, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Shivangi will read 10, 11, 12 translations and 12 purport.
Hare Krishna text and translation. Those who are desirous of achieving complete perfection in life must submissively hear all topics that are connected with the transcendental activities and qualities of the personality of Godhead who acts wonderfully. Text 11, translation. The good sages said, O grave Sutta Goswami, may you live many years and have eternal fame, for you are speaking very nicely about the activities of Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. This is just like nectar for mortal beings like us. Text 12, Translation. We have just begun the performance of this fruitive activity, a sacrificial fire, without certainty of its result due to the many imperfections in our action. Our bodies have become black from the smoke, but we are factually pleased by the nectar of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead Govinda which you are distributing. Purport. The sacrificial fire kindled by the sages of Naimisharanya were certainly full of smoke and doubts because of so many flaws. The first flaw is that there is an acute scarcity of expert brahmanas able to carry out such performances successfully in this age of Kali. Any discrepancy in such sacrifices spoils the whole show and the result is uncertain, like agricultural enterprises. The good result of tilling paddy fields depends on providential rain, and therefore the result is uncertain. Similarly, performance of any kind of sacrifice in this age of Kali is also uncertain. Unscrupulous, greedy brahmanas of the age of Kali induce the innocent public to such uncertain sacrificial shows without disclosing the scriptural injunction that in the age of Kali there is no fruitful sacrificial performance, but the sacrifice of the congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Sutta Goswami was narrating that transcendental activities of the Lord before the congregation of sages, and they were factually perceiving the result of hearing these transcendental activities. One can feel this practically, as one can feel the result of eating food. Spiritual realization acts in that way. The sages of Naimisharanya were practically sufferers from the smoke of a sacrificial fire and were doubtful about the result, but by hearing from a realized person like Sutta Goswami, they were fully satisfied. In the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, Vishnu tells Shiva that in the age of Kali, men full of anxieties of various kinds can vainly labor in fruitive activity and philosophical speculations, but when they are engaged in devotional service, the result is sure and certain, and there is no loss of energy. In other words, nothing performed for spiritual realization or for material benefits can be successful without the devotional service to the Lord. Thank you.
So sages started asking more questions because sages wanted to hear full Srimad Bhagavatam. Now sages are saying that even though we are doing this fire sacrifice, but actually we want to hear Krishna Katha. Because by this fire sacrifice, the only result is that our body has become black from that smoke coming out from the fire. Therefore, please narrate the pastimes of Govinda so that we can be satisfied. Means the sages were confident on the Krishna Katha as the sacrifice, and the sages were not confident at all in the fire sacrifice that they were doing because there are so many imperfections. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport we just read that the first flaw is that there are no qualified brahmanas to perform sacrifices in the first place. And in this age of Kali, brahmanas, or so-called brahmanas, mislead common people to such so-called fire yajna and not show the scriptural injunction which we just read that fire sacrifice is not really possible. So just think about especially what goes on in India. All these brahmanas or so-called brahmanas, they are actually running a business in the name of doing this fire yajna, and then they demand so many things in terms of Lakshmi and other opulences. So it's useless. Questions, comments, realizations? And the discussion continues in the next few verses where, at least in verse number 13, the sages are saying that we just want to hear Krishna Katha because even a moment's association with a devotee cannot be compared to heavenly planets. Nitya will read verses 13 to 17 translations. That's pretty straightforward.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, text 13. The value of a moment's association with the devotee of the Lord cannot even be compared to the attainment of the heavenly planet or liberation from matter. and what to speak of worldly benedictions in the form of material prosperity, which are for those who are meant for death. Text 14. The personality of Godhead Lord Krishna, Govinda, is the exclusive shelter for all great living beings, and his transcendental attributes cannot even be measured by such masters of mystic powers as Lord Shiva and Lord Rama. Can anyone who is expert in religion, nectar, rasa, ever be fully saturated by hearing topics about him? Text 15. O Sutta Goswami, you are a learned and pure devotee of the Lord, because the personality of Godhead is the chief object of service. Therefore, please describe to us the pastimes of the Lord, which are above all material conceptions, for we are anxious to receive such messages. Text 16. O Sutta Goswami, please describe those topics of the Lord by which Maharaj Parikshit, whose intelligence was fixed on liberation, attained the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of Garuda, the king of birds. Those topics were vibrated by the son of Vyasa. Text 17. Thus, please narrate to us the narrations of the unlimited, for they are purifying and supreme. They were spoken to Maharaj Parikshit, and they are very dear to the pure devotees, being full of Bhakti Yoga.
Questions, comments, realizations? They are just straightforward verses where sages are asking to speak Krishna Katha. All right. So, next verse is important. I mean, all verses are important, but next verse has an important point. That Sutta Goswami is asked to speak in front of senior sages. Now, let us see the mood of Sutta Goswami, what Sutta Goswami is teaching us. That say tomorrow, if we are asked to give a class and in the audience you have senior devotees sitting, or even your Siksha Guru is sitting, so what should be the mood? I mean, if there is a senior, the first thing is that let the senior speak. But at times it may happen that you may be asked, no, you do the class. Then what should be our mood and how do we approach is a very important learning which we'll discuss in the next verse. Matan Prabhu, 18, translation and purport, faster pace.
Hare Krishna. 18. Sudha Goswami said, O God, although we are born in a mixed caste, we are still promoted in birthright simply by serving and following the great who are advanced in knowledge. Even by conversing with such great souls, one can without delay cleanse oneself all disqualification resulting from lower birth. Purport. Sudha Goswami did not take his birth in a Brahmana family. He was born in a family of mixed caste or uncultured low family, but because of higher association like Sri Sukadeva Goswami and great rishis of Naimisaranya, certainly disqualifications of inferior inferior birth was washed off. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu followed this principle in pursuance of Vedic usages. And by his transcendental association, he elevated many low-born or those disqualified by birth or accent to the status of devotional service and established them in the position of acharyas or authorities. Clearly stated that any man, whatever he may be, whether a Brahmana or a Sudra by birth or a householder or mendicant in the order of society, if he is conversant with the science of Krishna, he can be accepted as Acharya or Guru, a spiritual master. Sudha Goswami learned the science of Krishna from the great rishis and authorities like Sukadeva and Vyasa Deva, and he was so qualified that even the sages of Naimisaranya eagerly wanted to hear from him the science of Krishna in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. So he had the double association of great souls. By hearing and preaching transcendental science or the science of Krishna has to be learned from the authorities, and when one preaches the science, he becomes still more qualified. So Sudha Goswami had both the advantages, and thus undoubtedly he was completely freed from all disqualifications of low birth and mental agonies. This verse definitely proves that Srila Goswami did not refuse to teach Sudha Goswami about the transcendental science, nor did the sages of Naimisaranya refuse to hear lessons from him because of his inferior birth. This means that thousands of years ago there was no bar to learning or preaching the transcendental science because of inferior birth. The rigidity of the so-called caste system in Hindu society became prominent within only 100 years or so, when the number of Diviya Bandhus or disqualified men in the families of higher caste increased. Lord Sri Chaitanya revived the original Vedic system and he elevated Thakura Karidasa to the position of Nama Acharya, or the authority in preaching the glories of the holy name of the Lord. Although His Holiness Sri Karidasa Thakura was pleased to appear in a family of Mohammedans, such is the power of pure devotees of the Lord. The Ganges water is accepted as pure, and one can become purified after taking bath in the waters of the Ganges. But as far as the great devotees of the Lord are concerned, they can purify a degraded soul even by being seen by the lowborn, and what to speak of association. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to purify the whole atmosphere of the polluted world by sending the qualified preachers all over the world, and it remains with the Indians to take up this task scientifically and thus do the best kind of humanitarian work. The mental diseases of present generation are more acute than bodily diseases. It is quite fit and proper to take up the preaching of Srimad Bhagavatam all over the world without delay. Mahatma Adi Adidana also mentions Dictionary of Great Devotees, or a book full of words of great devotees. Such a dictionary of words of great devotees and those of the Lord are in the Vedas and allied literatures, specifically the Srimad Bhagavatam.
So, Sutta Goswami is showing a mood of humility. He says, well, I'm not born in a Brahmana family, therefore I'm not having this birthright. And then Prabhupada goes on to explain that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that anyone who has learned the science of Krishna via the bona fide parampara, he is qualified to become an acharya. An example is given that how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made Haridas Thakur as Nam Acharya, even though Haridas Thakur is from a Mohammedan family. And Prabhupada goes on to explain, which is actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saying, that Indians specifically have this role to first study Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and then spread this knowledge all around the world, but Indians are not doing their duty properly. Well, forget spreading. They themselves are not reading their own scriptures. And Prabhupada has said this in many lectures that Prabhupada was actually furious on Indians specifically for not doing their assigned duty. Questions, comments, realizations?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. In the text, it states that one who's born in a lower birth has to cleanse oneself of the disqualification. But for bhakti, there are no disqualifications, Prabhu. So are they just talking about our varna, the qualities that we have when we are born in the lower birth?
Yeah, so Shudra will, we have discussed this in Bhagavad Gita 3.33 and 34, where Krishna says, what can repression accomplish? So Shudra will have his Varnik abilities, and Shudra will also have anarthas. So when the Shudra starts doing Bhakti Yoga process, gets initiated and he's advancing, the Shudra will continue his Varnik duties, but the Shudra will drop his anarthas, means Shudra will purify his anarthas. That's what is being referred, that yes, you are born in a low-born family where you have some disqualifications and some anarthas. By the process of bhakti yoga, you get purified, you drop your anarthas, and you are qualified like a brahmana. Nitya.
Thank you, Prabhu. One other follow-up question, again, because of people born in lower caste, and that also includes when you're born as a woman. Is it also based, of course, guna, karma, is it also based on spiritual credit? Which, if we are born, in the lower, is it also based on spiritual credit?
You are correct, and we have discussed this in Bhagavad Gita 9.32 as well as the women are less intelligent discussion in Bhagavad Gita. Specifically, we have discussed this in Bhagavad Gita 9.32 that somebody gets a woman body. Yes, depends on many factors. One of the factor is having less spiritual credits. That's one of the factors which determines whether somebody gets a female body. But Krishna goes on to explain, we have discussed this in Bhagavad Gita 9.32 and discussions around that verse. Krishna says, for Bhakti Yoga, these designations, bodily designations, don't matter. The example given is that for a male, for somebody in a male body who has more spiritual credits, for running a 100-meter race, the male is standing at the starting line from where the 100-meter race starts. And somebody has a female body because of less spiritual credits means that in the same 100-meter race, the female is not standing at the starting line, but is standing a little behind. That's a little disadvantage. But Krishna says it doesn't matter. Those designation doesn't matter. That little disadvantage that the female is standing a little behind the line doesn't matter because Bhakti Yoga will elevate anyone and everyone. And then Krishna also goes on to explain in Bhagavad Gita 9.30, apichet suduracharya, ananya bhakt, bhajate mam ananya bhakt. That even if somebody does sudurachar, most abominable activity, if he is engaged in devotional service, then he is considered a sadhu. So there can be incidental falls and there can be accidental falls. Doesn't matter. Bhakti Yoga will elevate as long as you are seriously endeavoring on the path of Bhakti Yoga. Nitya?
Thank you, Prabhu.
All right. Verse number 19, translation and purport. Mayank Prabhu, faster pace, please.
Hare Krishna. And what to speak of those who are under the direction of the great devotees, chanting the holy name of the unlimited, who has unlimited potency. The personality of Godhead, unlimited in potency and transcendental by attributes, is called Ananta. Purport. The Vijabandhu, or the less intelligent, uncultured men born of higher caste, put forward many arguments against the lower caste men becoming Brahmanas in this life. They argue that birth in a family of Sudras or less than Sudras is made possible by one's previous sinful acts, and that one therefore has to complete the terms of disadvantages due to lower birth. And to answer these false logicians, Srimad Bhagavatam asserts that one who chants the holy name of the Lord under the direction of a pure devotee can at once get free from the disadvantages due to a lower caste birth. A pure devotee of the Lord does not commit any offense while chanting the holy name of the Lord. There are 10 different offenses in the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. To chant the holy name under the direction of a pure devotee is offenseless chanting. Offenseless chanting of the holy name of the Lord is transcendental, and therefore such chanting can at once purify one from the effects of all kinds of previous sins. This offenseless chanting indicates that one has fully understood the transcendental nature of the holy name and has thus surrendered unto the Lord. Transcendentally, the holy name of the Lord and the Lord Himself are identical, being absolute. The holy name of the Lord is as powerful as the Lord. The Lord is the all powerful personality of Godhead, and He has innumerable names which are all non different from Him and are equally powerful also. In the last word of the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord asserts that one who surrenders fully unto Him is protected from all sins by the grace of the Lord. Since His name and He Himself are identical, the holy name of the Lord can protect the devotee from all effects of sins. The chanting of the holy name of the Lord can undoubtedly deliver one from the disadvantages of a lower caste birth. The Lord's unlimited power is extended on and on by the unlimited expansion of the devotees and incarnations, and thus every devotee of the Lord and incarnations also can be equally surcharged with the potency of the Lord. Since the devotee is surcharged with the potency of the Lord, even fractionally, the disqualification due to low birth cannot stand in the way.
All right. So the lesson is that whatever be the birthright, if given a chance to speak, use it in Krishna Katha. Not that I have this ability that, oh, look, I am so and so talking about Krishna Katha. No, this will increase my false ego. Rather, take a humble position. In verse 19, we read that Krishna is Ananta. When we try to glorify Krishna with humility, then Krishna will help. Now, we are giving class does not mean I am qualified. No, rather take it as a blessing. Give a class for our own purification. Means I am taking a humble position and trying to give a class for my purification. And I've explained this many times, and many speakers will say this, that even though, say, whosoever is giving a class, say right now, how we are discussing, the voice is coming out from a speaker, but actually it's Krishna speaking. And I've given this example many times, that many times a question is popped up for which I have no clue about. But somehow the answer comes out from my voice, and many speakers will say the same. Why? Because it's not me speaking. Yes, the voice is coming out from me or any of the speaker, but actually it's Krishna speaking. I have actually many times heard our own class recording where after the class I remember, wait a minute, there was some question on this. I don't even remember the question. Forget the answer. I don't even remember the full question. I only have a slight glimpse of a question. I actually go back and listen to the recording, and I am actually myself surprised that how was I able to answer this question when I don't actually know the answer? And the reason is exactly what Sutta Goswami is explaining here, that take a humble position. I am not giving a class. Yes, voice is coming out from my voice, but actually it's Krishna speaking. And therefore, you ask these questions. Well, I am not some hi-fi devotee knowing so many things. No, it's Krishna. He knows everything. He's the one giving the class. Questions, comments, realizations? All right. Malti, chapter 18, verses 20 to 23 translations are straightforward.
Hare Krishna. Text 20. It is now ascertained that the personality of Godhead is unlimited and there is none of equal to him. Consequently, no one can speak of him adequately. Great demigods cannot obtain the favor of the goddess of fortune even by prayers, but this very goddess renders service unto the Lord, although he is unwilling to have such service. Text 21. Who can be worthy of the name of Supreme Lord but the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna? Brahmaji collected the water emanating from the nails of his feet in order to award it to the Lord Shiva as worshipful welcome. This very water, the Gangas, is purifying the whole universe, including Lord Shiva. Text 22. Self-controlled person who are attached to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna can all of a sudden give up the world of material attachment, including the gross body and subtle mind, and go away to attain the highest perfection of the renounced order of life by which non-violence and renunciation are consequential. Hare Krishna.
Straightforward verses. Now from verse number 24 up to 31, the verses describe that how Parikshit Maharaj becomes angry on Samik Rishi. So this is all series of incidents to lay a foundation. We'll soon discuss about this. Gauri, chapter 18, 24-25, translation and purport, faster pace.
Yes, Prabhuji. Verse 24, translation. Once upon a time, Maharaj Parikshit, while engaging in hunting in the forest with bows and arrows, became extremely fatigued, hungry and thirsty while following the stags. While searching for a reservoir of water, he entered the hermitage of the well-known Samika Rishi and saw the sage sitting silently with closed eyes. Purport. The Supreme Lord is so kind to his pure devotees that in proper time he calls such devotees upon him and thus creates an auspicious circumstance for the devotee. Maharaj Parikshit was a pure devotee of the Lord, and there was no reason for him to become extremely fatigued, hungry, and thirsty, because a devotee of the Lord never becomes perturbed by such bodily demands. By the desire of the Lord, even such a devotee can become apparently fatigued and thirsty just to create a situation favorable for his renunciation of worldly activities. One has to give up all attachment for worldly relations before one is able to go back to Godhead. And thus, when a devotee is too much absorbed in worldly affairs, the Lord creates a situation to cause indifference. The Supreme Lord never forgets his pure devotee, even though he may be engaged in so called worldly affairs. Sometimes he creates an awkward situation and the devotee becomes obliged to renounce all worldly affairs. The devotee can understand by the signal of the Lord, but others take it to be unfavorable and frustrating. Maharaj Parikshit wanted to become the medium for the revelation of Srimad Bhagavatam by Lord Krishna, and his grandfather Arjun was the medium for the Bhagavad Gita. Had Arjun not been taken up with an illusion of family affection by the will of the Lord, the Bhagavad Gita would not have been spoken by the Lord himself for the good of all concerned. Similarly, had Maharaj Parikshit not been fatigued, hungry, and thirsty at this time, Srimad Bhagavatam would not have been spoken by Sri Sukadev Goswami, the prime authority of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, this is a prelude to the circumstances under which Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken for the benefit of all concerned. The prelude, therefore, begins with the words, once upon a time. Text 26.
Hold on.
The Muni.
Hold
Sorry?
on, Gauri, hold on.
Okay.
So we also probably skipped verse 23 translation. I will read, and it's laying a foundation that, O rishis, who are as powerfully pure as the sun, I shall try to describe to you the transcendental pastimes of Vishnu as far as knowledge is concerned. As the birds fly in the sky, as far as their capacity allows, so do the learned devotees describe the Lord as far as their realization allows. Thank you for letting me know that we skipped this verse. So it's laying a foundation that if you discuss Krishna Katha, then you speak what your ability is. There is no limit on how much you can speak, because Krishna is unlimited. The example of the birds flying in the sky is given that Sky is unlimited. The birds will fly up to their capacity. And we read in verse 19, in 24-25, that Krishna created the circumstance so that Parikshit Maharaj becomes thirsty, so that the result will be that Parikshit Maharaj can go back home to Godhead. Now, there's a series of foundation and leading up to the incident, which is coming up in upcoming verses. Any questions, comments, realizations so far? Gauri? Gauri?
Prabhuji, while reading this purport, I had some thought came up that um, seeing how Maharaj Parikshit was fatigued, hungry, and thirsty to create a situation favorable for his renunciation of worldly activities. Like when people in old age, they get dementia. So is that also something provided by Krishna? So the people, the elderly people can give up worldly activities?
Depends on what you do with the activity or with that disease. Everybody gets disease or everybody gets misery. So most people run away from God saying, what is this kind of God giving so much misery? Devotee takes the misery and uses it to remember Krishna. Now, one example from a live from one of the devotee from our batch here, that the devotee has dementia, like some disease that doesn't have any remembrance of any past sufferings. The devotee is simply focused on reading Bhagavatam and Krishna Katha. So the devotee who's from our batch, this batch, has this relative who's old age and has this disease. The devotee says this is perfect because the old person, the old devotee, has no recollection of past miseries and past enjoyment at all. The devotee is simply focused on hearing Krishna Katha every single day. And also probably the devotee forgets the Krishna Katha also. Therefore he says, I'm just reading it every day. And if the devotee leaves the body while they are reading Krishna Katha, well, that's all they will remember because they have no memory of anything of the past. So it depends on what you do with it. Yes, everything is coming from Krishna. Everything is dependent on Krishna's sanctioning. It still is up to us what we do with it. Gauri?
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Vimal Prabhu? The voice is not crystal clear.
Can you hear me, Prabhuji, now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Prabhuji, previously we read that Parikshit Maharaj was not happy when he saw that Kali was beating cow with a club and there's a bull there with the three leg cut off. And over here we are reading that he's going for hunting. So how isn't it contradicting? Like one place he's protecting the animals and innocent, another place he's hunting. Is he hunting for sense pleasure or hungry? Why it's described here as it is?
Yeah. So Kshatriyas, they go for hunting to prepare themselves for war. Now, ordinary people, or even if somebody who's Kshatriya who has never killed anybody or even killed an animal, well, how is he going to fight a war? How is he going to protect the citizens? So this hunting is not for sense gratification, meaning not for eating those animals. The hunting is to prepare for what their Varna demands as their duty to protect the citizens. Even Arjuna, together with Krishna, we did discuss this in one of the previous chapter. where the whole forest was burned for Agni Dev, and all the animals in the forest also died. Well, they were died in presence of Krishna, so they all got relieved. And the discussion leading up to that was that Arjuna was on a hunting mission with Krishna. So they were not hunting for their own sense gratification. They were hunting just to be prepared that tomorrow when I have to go to war, I should be able to kill somebody if I have to for the protection of citizens. Vimal Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
All right. Vimal Prabhu will read. Verses 26 to 31 translations are straightforward.
Hare Krishna. The Muni sense organs, breath, mind, and intelligence were all restrained from material activities, and he was situated in a trance apart from the three having achieved transcendental position qualities equal with the Supreme Absolute. Text 27. The sage in meditation was covered by the skin of his stag, and long compressed hair was scattered all over him. The king, whose plate was dry from thirst, asked him for water. Text 28. The king, not received by any formal welcome by means of being offered a seat, place, water, and sweet address, considering himself neglected, so thinking of, he became angry. Text 29. O Brahmana, the king, angry and envy directed towards the Brahman sage, were unprecedented, being that circumstances had made him angry and thirsty. Text 30. While leaving, the king, being so insulted, picked up a lifeless snake with his bow and angrily placed it on the shoulders of Sage. Then he returned to his place. Text 31. Upon returning, he began to contemplate and argue within himself whether the sage had actually been in meditation with sense concentrated and eyes closed, or whether he had just been feigning trance just to avoid receiving a lower kshatriya. Text 32.
Hold on. So again, these are setting the scene that first Parikshit Maharaj became thirsty, and then the sage, this is Shamik Rishi sage, who is sitting in meditation and in trance, did not welcome Parikshit Maharaj because the sage is in trance. He doesn't know who's coming, who's going. And this discussion continues. Rest of the verses up to 46 are again straightforward. Vimal Prabhu will continue 32 to 38 translation.
The sage had son who was very powerful. Being a Brahmana's son, while he was playing with the inexperienced boy, he heard of his father's distress, which was occasioned by the king. The boy spoke as followed. Text 33. The Brahman's sons Sarang said, "Oh, just look at the sin of the ruler, who like crows and watchdog at the door propagate sin against their master, contrary to the principle governing servant." Text 34. The descendant of the kingly ordered are definitely designate as watchdog, and they must keep themselves at the door. On what ground can dog enter the house and claim to dine with the master and on the same plate? Text 35. After the departure of the Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead and supreme ruler of everyone, these upstarts have flourished, our protector being gone. Therefore, I myself shall take up this matter and punish them. Just witness my power. Text 36. the son of Rishi, his eyes red hot with anger, touched the water of the river Kushika while speaking to his playmate and discharged the falling thunderbolt of words. Text 37. The Brahman's son cursed the king thus. On the seventh day from today, a snake bird will bite the most wretched one of what dynasty because of his having broken the law of equity by insulting my father. Text 38. Thereafter, when the boy returned to the hermitage, he saw a snake on his father's shoulder, and out of his grief he cried very loudly.
So again, these are setting the scenes that Parikshit Maharaj became angry, went into Shamik Rishi's hermitage, but sage didn't notice because sage was in trance. And the Brahmana boy, Shringi, is Samik Rishi's son, that he cursed Parikshit Maharaj for Parikshit Maharaj's act of putting a dead snake on Shamik Rishi's neck. Now these acts was becoming thirsty and then becoming angry and then putting a dead snake don't really seem appropriate for a devotee or Parikshit Maharaj is not just a devotee, he's a pure devotee. And we'll soon understand that this was the series of incidences planned by the Lord. So Kali could not find a place allotted to him. So Parikshit Maharaj did allot 5 places, but Kali could not find a place. The personality of Kali, therefore, was seeking an opportunity to establish his authority. And by the grace of the Lord, he found a hole in the puffed up, inexperienced Brahmana boy. And Srila Prabhupada says in one of the purports, in these verses, Srila Prabhupada saying, this is the first sign of the influence of Kali, is that the degradation of the Brahmana community begins. And this cursing of Parikshit Maharaj by the Brahmana boy is the first instance of this degradation of the Brahmana community. Shivangi has a question.
Prabhuji, in the verse 26 purport, it says that it was right for the king to get angry when the rishi because he needed water. I'm just wondering, is that really true? Because the rishi was in some kind of meditation, so he should not have disturbed him.
Yeah,
right?
and I already said briefly, and it's coming up discussion that this was whole plan of the Lord. And will actually, I'm going to ask you a question. Well, does this actually make sense? So hold on for a few more minutes. It's just coming up in next few verses.
Prabhuji, the purport, it actually says it was right. The king's action was right.
Yeah, this was the whole plan of the Lord. It's all coming up in next few verses. But that Krishna, forget the point about being right or wrong. We already discussed in verse 24-25 that Krishna created this circumstance. So that first Parikshit Maharaj becomes thirsty and fatigued. Well, devotees or pure devotees actually don't become fatigued to begin with. And then to become angry. So this was the whole plan of the Lord. So understand from a bigger perspective rather than one statement in a purport. Understand the whole series of incidences and a whole outcome of this series of incidents, and you will soon understand. Shivangi.
Oh, okay, but somewhere else it also says that the king can do no wrong. Like everything he does must be accepted as, the proper action.
Yeah, you are
It's
correct.
true for Parikshit Maharaj because he's a pure devotee, but
Yeah, so here when Prabhupada is saying king, in the context he is referring to pious kings like Yudhishthira and Parikshit Maharaj, not like kings of today. We have discussed the comparison of Kali Yuga or modern times versus Vedic times, that today the leaders don't have any knowledge about spirituality. The leaders are simply focused on their own sense gratification, that how can they stay on power, and the leaders don't want to leave their post until they are dragged by death. So we have discussed all those criteria, and in the context of Prabhupada saying king can do no wrong is referring to pious kings, pure devotees like Parikshit Maharaj and Yudhishthir.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Shivangi can read 39 to 46 translations.
Text 39 translation. O Brahmanas, the rishi who was born in the family of Angira Muni, hearing his son crying, gradually opened his eyes and saw the dead snake around his neck. Text 40 translation. He threw the dead snake aside and asked his son why he was crying, whether anyone had done him harm. On hearing this, the son explained to him what had happened. Text 41. The father heard from his son that the king had been cursed, although he should never have been condemned, for he was the best among all human beings. The rishi did not congratulate his son, but on the contrary began to repent, saying, Alas, what a great sinful act was performed by my son. He was awarded heavy punishment for an insignificant offense.
Up to 46.
Oh, sorry. Text 42. Oh, my boy, your intelligence is immature, and therefore you have no knowledge that the king, who is the best amongst human beings, is as good as the personality of Godhead. He is never to be placed on an equal footing with common men. The citizens of the state live in prosperity, being protected by his unsurpassable prowess. Text 43. My dear boy, the lord who carries the wheel of a chariot is represented by the monarchical regime, and when this regime is abolished, the whole world becomes filled with thieves, who then at once vanquish the unprotected subjects like scattered lambs. Text 44. Due to the termination of the monarchical regimes and the plundering of the people's wealth by rogues and thieves, there will be great social disruptions. People will be killed and injured, and animals and women will be stolen. And for all these sins, we shall be responsible. Text 45. At that time, the people in general will fall systematically from the path of progressive civilization in respect to the qualitative engagements of the castes and the orders of society and the Vedic injunctions. Thus, they will become more attracted to economic development for sense gratification, and as a result, there will be an unwanted population on the level of dogs and monkeys. Text 46. The Emperor Parikshit is a pious king. He is highly celebrated and is a first-class devotee of the personality of Godhead. He is a saint amongst royalty, and he has performed many horse sacrifices. When such a king is tired and fatigued, being stricken with hunger and thirst, he does not at all deserve to be cursed.
So verse number 45, you can see the result today. So what started with the Brahmana boy cursing Parikshit Maharaj as the first instance of the degradation of Brahmana community, and the first instance of Kali finding a hole so that Kali can flourish, you can see the outcome today, where in 45 it explains that people in general will fall systematically from the path of progressive civilization in respect of qualitative engagements of the caste and orders of the society and the Vedic injunctions. It's very vigilant, visible right around us. And the verse goes on to say, thus they will be, meaning thus people will be more attracted to economic development for sense gratification. As a result, there will be unwanted population on the level of dogs and monkeys. So Shamik Rishi understands what his son has done. He understands that he has done it wrong. And he goes on to blame his son, Shringi, that no, you should not have cursed. You have done a mistake. Now, here's a question for you. what Shivangi was asking a few minutes back. Now, this was whole the plan of the Lord, that Supreme Personality of Godhead made Parikshit Maharaj thirsty, so that this incident can happen, that Parikshit Maharaj becomes angry of seemingly not being welcomed. And then, even though Parikshit Maharaj is a pure devotee, puts a dead snake on the neck of a Shamik Rishi who's sitting in trance. Now, all these seem really odd circumstances, but then the Rishi is blaming the boy. Are Baba, how do you understand that this was whole plan of the Lord? Why are you blaming the boy? Does that make sense? Anybody, is that a valid question?
Because his son did not understand that it was the plan of the Lord.
Yeah, that's okay. But then Shamik Rishi knows. So why is he blaming the boy? Shivangi.
Because the boy made a bad decision. I mean, everybody has their free will, right? So
Yeah, but
shouldn't
why are you blaming the boy if this was the whole plan of the Lord?
because the boy chose to take that action. He should have known better.
All right. He's a boy. He's not supposed to, but okay. Archana?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, as the Rishi knows that is a plan of a Krishna, and maybe the Rishi doesn't want that the downfall should start from his generation.
All right. Let's see. Let's read the answer. Archana will read 47 translation and purport.
Text 47. Then the Rishi prayed to the all-pervading personality for Godhead to pardon his immature boy, who has no intelligence and who committed the great sin of cursing a person who was completely free from all the sin, who was subordinate and who deserved to be protected. Everyone is responsible for his own action, either pious or sinful. Sri Samaka could forces that his son had committed a great sin by cursing Maharaj Parikshit, who deserved to be protected by Brahmanas. For he was a pious ruler and completely free from all the sin because of his being a first-class devotee of a Lord. When an offense is done onto the devotee of a Lord, it is very difficult to overcome the reaction. The Brahmanas, being at the head of the social order, are meant to give a protection to their subordinate and not to curse them. There are occasions when Brahmana may furiously curse a subordinate, Kshatriya or Vaishya, etc. But in the case of Maharaj Parikshit, there were no ground as already explained. The foolish boy has done it out of the sheer vanity in being a Brahmana's son, and thus he became liable to be punished by the law of God. The Lord never forgive a person who condemn his pure devotee. Therefore, by cursing a king, the foolish Shringri had committed not only a sin but also a greatest offense. Therefore, the Rishi could forces that only the Supreme Personality for Godhead could save his boy from his sinful act. He therefore directly prayed for pardon from the Supreme Lord, who alone can undo a things which is impossible to change. The appeal was made in the name of the foolish boy who had developed no intelligence at all. The question may raise here that since it was the desire of a Lord that Parikshit Maharaj be put into the awkward position so that he might be delivered from material existence, then why was Brahmana's son was responsible for this offensive act? The answer is that the offensive act was performed by a child only so that he could be executed very easily, and thus the prayer of the father was accepted. But if the question is raised, why the Brahman community as a whole was made responsible for allowing Kali into the world affair, the answer is given in the Varaha Purana that the demon who acted inimically towards the personality of a Godhead, but were not killed by the Lord, were allowed to take the birth in the family of Brahmanas, to take the advantage of the age of Kali. The all merciful Lord gave them a chance to have their birth in the family of pious Brahman so that they could progress towards the salvation. But the demon, instead of utilizing the good opportunity, misused the Brahmanical culture due to being puffed up by the vanity in the becoming Brahmanas. The typical example is the son of Samika Rishi, and all the foolish sons of Brahmana are warned thereby not to become a foolish as Shringi, and so be always on the guard against the demonic qualities which they had in their previous birth. The foolish boy was, of course, excused by the Lord, but other who may not have a father like Shamika Rishi will be put into the great difficulty if they misuse the advantage obtained by birth in the Brahmana's family. Hare Krishna.
So did you all get the answer that Shamik Rishi asked the Supreme Lord to forgive the immature boy? So the whole arrangement was done that the curse be done by a young fire boy who's immature, so that he can be pardoned very easily, because this was actually the plan of the Lord, that Parikshit Maharaj first became thirsty, then angry, and then put a snake. And the immature boy, Shringi, was just an instrument. And just as, say, even in your respective families, or even when we all were children, yes, young children, we did so many mistakes, and the parents will forgive. And that's the reason why a young boy was used for the curse, so that he can be very easily be pardoned. So it's just an immature act. Now, further Prabhupada goes on to explain in the last paragraph that we read that demons who acted inimically toward the personality of Godhead, but were not killed by the Lord, were allowed to take birth in families of Brahmana to take advantage of the age of Kali. So from this point on, if at all you have to perform any ritual, do you really need to perform that ritual? Because you now know who these Brahmanas are, who are doing this so-called rituals. And these Brahmanas are not Brahmanas, they are actually so-called Brahmanas. They are just trying to run a business in the name of doing these rituals. Questions, comments, realizations? And Shivangi, does that help you? Nitya.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Yes, all the actions that led to this is the will of God. But again, the Rishi is also a devotee of the Lord. So Parikshit Maharaj offended a devotee of the Lord. His actions were also not correct. And then he himself is a devotee. So it's the devotee creating an offense against the devotee. So how can it be right?
So you are correct that seemingly these actions are incorrect, but understand the whole plan of the Lord, that Krishna used his pure devotee Parikshit Maharaj for two things. First, to get Parikshit Maharaj fully renounced, as well as use Parikshit Maharaj so that Srimad Bhagavatam can come into this world, which is an upcoming discussion in next few verses. That this was the whole plan. If you look at in isolation, yes, you are correct that Parikshit Maharaj's actions don't seem right. But that wasn't really the plan. It was just a standalone incident so that Srimad Bhagavatam can come, so that Parikshit Maharaj can renounce. And we read in one of the verse before that Krishna puts the devotee, his pure devotees, in awkward situation so that he can renounce the material world very easily. Nitya?
Yes, Prabhu, thank you. But still, yes, I will try to see it from the bigger picture, why this happened, which makes complete sense. But again, there is so much focus on uh, the mistake made by the Brahmana boy. It seems like it comes off like the rishi is magnanimous. He is being, magnanimous, and then Parikshit Maharaj is being, he's not being as what his pious nature should dictate. And then so much emphasis on the boy making a mistake, on the downfall of the Brahmana community, that those things again,
Yeah, you are.
I don't know.
So Nitya has the correct understanding that yes, Shamik Rishi is definitely magnanimous. That he was even sitting in perfect silence in trance, and then when he comes out of this trance, he actually blames his own son that you have done a mistake. Now, Nitya's point about the focus of the immature boy being the cause of downfall of the Brahmana community, we actually read in the purport. Prabhupada actually answers this, that yes, this was the first instance that Kali was looking for a hole, and this was actually the first instance that the Brahmana boy, the inexperienced Brahmana boy, gave Kali an opportunity to enter into this Brahmana community, through this Brahmana community, and then flourish to what it is today and will continue to flourish. About Parikshit Maharaj is the whole purpose of this whole incident described in chapter 18 is so that Srimad Bhagavatam can come into the world. Nitya?
Yes, Prabhu, it's a good point that by cursing a pious king, the pious king loses his thing, and Parikshit Maharaj was actually the one who had taken away the powers of Kali. So that all completely makes sense.
Yeah. And the next verse will actually continue this discussion. Now, Parikshit Maharaj is a pure devotee, is actually more powerful than these all Brahmanas. And Parikshit Maharaj could have very easily countered the curse, and the curse would be gone and Kali would have not been able to flourish. And verse number 48 is a very important verse in this chapter 18. We have read this verse earlier also in the offenses to avoid class, that Parikshit Maharaj could have very easily countered the curse. But why did Parikshit Maharaj not counter the curse? Let's read 48 translation and purport. It's a very important purport. Divya, 48 translation purport, faster pace.
Hare Krishna. 48 translation. The devotees of the Lord are so forbearing that even though they are defamed, cheated, cursed, disturbed, neglected, or even killed, they are never inclined to avenge themselves. Purport. Rishi Shamika also knew that the Lord does not forgive a person who has committed an offense at the feet of a devotee. The Lord can only give direction to take shelter of the devotee. He thought within himself that if Maharaja Parikshit would counter-curse the boy, he might be saved. But he knew also that a pure devotee is callous about worldly advantages or reverses. As such, the devotees are never inclined to counteract personal defamation, curses, negligence, etc. As far as such things are concerned, in personal affairs the devotees do not care for them. But in the case of their being performed against the Lord and his devotees, then the devotees take very strong action. It was a personal affair, and therefore Shamika Rishi knew that the king would not take counter action. Thus there was no alternative than to place an appeal to the Lord for the immature boy. It is not that only the Brahmanas are powerful enough to award curses or blessings upon the subordinates. The devotee of the Lord, even though he may not be a Brahmana, is more powerful than a Brahmana. But a powerful devotee never misuses the power for personal benefit. Whatever power the devotee may have is always utilized in service towards the Lord and his devotees only.
So, Divya will continue from the screen. So if you recall this discussion This is the slide from Offenses to Avoid class, that what to do if someone else commits an offense against you, that just as the Brahmana boy, Shringi, has committed an offense against Parikshit Maharaj, and what should Parikshit Maharaj do? So we have discussed this, and exactly I have laid out what we just read from 1.18.48 verse and purport. Divya will read the last lines that are highlighted in yellow.
But a powerful devotee never misuses the power for personal benefit. Whatever power the devotee may have is always utilized in service towards the Lord and his devotees only. Key point: devotees are never inclined to counteract personal defamation.
Devotees are never inclined to counteract personal defamation. So, because the curse was personal to Parikshit Maharaj, therefore Parikshit Maharaj did not counter curse. And further, Parikshit Maharaj, of course, does not want to interfere with Lord's plan to first get Srimad Bhagavatam and to let Kali flourish. Because why there is Kali is because everybody's bad karma has to manifest. So for not to interfere with Lord's plan, plus of course this is personal affair, that the verse 1.18.48 says, devotees of the Lord are so forbearing that even though they are defamed, cheated, cursed, disturbed, neglected, or even killed, they are never inclined to avenge themselves. Questions, comments, realizations? Okay.
Prabhu, it also follows that Parikshit Maharaj did have some remorse about his actions, and so also did not he asked for the right reaction to his actions.
I didn't follow your question.
Prabhu, that Maharaj Parikshit felt remorse for his actions, right? That of what he had done, so that he did not seek any.
Yeah, you are correct that yes, afterwards Parikshit Maharaj also realized that, but goes on. The discussion is coming up that actually this was the whole plan of the Lord to get Srimad Bhagavatam. All right. Nitya can read 49 and 50 translations.
Yes, Prabhu. Text 49. The sage thus regretted the sin committed by his own son. He did not take the insult paid by the king very seriously. Text 50. Generally, the transcendentalists, even though engaged by others in the dualities of the material world, are not distressed, nor do they take pleasure in worldly things, for they are transcendentally engaged.
So actually, this was the whole desire of the Lord to get Srimad Bhagavatam into the world and to get Parikshit Maharaj fully renounced and back home to Godhead. And all these individuals, meaning Parikshit Maharaj, Shamik Rishi and his son Shringi, were all just instruments in fulfilling the desire of the Lord. So actually none of them were put into any difficulty because everything was done in relation with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is what is explained in verse number 49 purport, that this was all the plan of the Lord. And therefore, nobody actually got any sufferings. Nitya, you can read 49 purport.
Yes, Prabhu. The transcendentalists are the empiric philosophers, the mystics, and the devotees of the Lord. Empiric philosophers aim at the
18.49.
Oh, sorry, 49. Sorry. The whole incident is now cleared up. Maharaj Parikshit garlanding the face with the dead snake was not at all a very serious offense, but simply cursing the king was a serious offense. The serious offense was committed by a foolish child only. Therefore, he deserved to be pardoned by the Supreme Lord, although it was not possible to get free from the sinful reaction. Maharaj Parikshit also did not curse mind the curse offered to him by a foolish Brahmana. On the contrary, he took full advantage of the awkward situation, and by the great will of the Lord, Maharaj Parikshit achieved the highest perfection of the will of the Lord, achieved the highest perfection of life through the grace of Srila Sukadev Goswami. Actually, it was the desire of the Lord, and the Maharaj Parikshit, Rishi Shamika, and his son Singhi were all instrumental in fulfilling the desire of the Lord. So none of them were put into difficulty because everything was done in relation to the Supreme Person.
So we read the purport, very first line, Prabhupada says, the whole incident is now cleared up. And the last line of the purport, 49, says, actually, this was the desire of the Lord to get Srimad Bhagavatam into this world, and his pure devotee Parikshit Maharaj fully renounced and back home to Godhead. Therefore, Parikshit Maharaj, Samik Rishi, and his son Shringi were all just instruments in fulfilling the desire of the Lord, and therefore none of them were put into difficulty because everything was done in relation with the Supreme Person. Everybody, is the incident fully cleared up? Many of you asked question, Shivangi, Gauri, Archana, Nitya, many others. Yes, no, silence.
Yes.
Shivangi.
Is this different from the incident with Ashwatthama Prabhuji? Because that was also like the war and everything was the Lord's plan, right? But he got punished for real.
Yeah, so Ashwatthama did get punished for real because Ashwatthama went out of the way to first kill the sleeping sons of Pandavas, and then also tried to hurt Parikshit Maharaj in the womb. And Lord was actually angry. We read in one of the purports back in that chapter, I think it was chapter 13. No, Ashwatthama's chapter was chapter 7. That Lord was angry, saying, why does my devotee have to suffer even if he is just in a womb? And actually we read and discussed that Parikshit Maharaj's body was actually burned in the womb, and that Lord actually had to give him another body. So yes, Ashwatthama used his free will incorrectly. Therefore, Ashwatthama is still present in the material world and will remain present in material world for some 36,000 years in the same body to suffer in that same rotten body. That's a very severe punishment that he got. Shivangi?
Okay, Prabhuji.
Well,
Thank you.
here, none of them, like the Brahmana boy, was just pardoned. Okay, it was some childish act. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of first canto 18th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Maharaj Parikshit Cursed by a Brahmana Boy. We will aim to discuss and finish chapter 19. So we already had this whole background discussed in chapter 18, that Parikshit Maharaj became fatigued because this was the plan of the Lord to get his devotee renounced and come back home to Godhead. And the attitude of pure devotee is shown in 1.18.48, that Parikshit Maharaj did not counter curse because this was personal defamation. Plus, Parikshit Maharaj did not want to interfere with the cycle, with the plan of the Lord. And Parikshit Maharaj took the curse as mercy of the Lord, and Parikshit Maharaj became truly renounced. We also discussed in chapter 18 that even though Kali is full of fault, there are actually still a lot of advantages, that in the age of Kali, auspicious acts produce good effects immediately, whereas inauspicious acts must actually be performed to render effects. In other ages, simply by thinking to perform a sinful act, one used to become victim of the sinful act. On the contrary, a living being in this age of Kali is awarded with the results of pious acts simply by thinking of those pious acts. So Shamik Rishi realized what all had happened. He felt sorry and he asked the Lord to pardon the immature boy. And we discussed, which is also there in one of the questions, that if you serve devotees, if you read Srimad Bhagavatam, do devotional service, then you just counter Kali altogether. Kali doesn't affect you at all. Chapter 19 is a straightforward chapter, but with a very important learning as well. Chapter 19 is titled The Appearance of Sukadev Goswami. Chapter 19 is divided into 3 parts. Part 1, verses 1 to 7. Parikshit Maharaj sat down on the bank of Ganges for his imminent death. Part 2, Parikshit Maharaj inquires duty of everyone in all circumstances, especially for one who is about to die. I will repeat. Part 2 has a long sentence. So part 2 is verses 8 to 24. Parikshit Maharaj inquires duty of everyone in all circumstances, especially for one who is about to die. Part 3, verses 25 to 40. Appearance of Sukadev Goswami. Gauri will read chapter 19, verse 1 and 2 translation plus verse 2 purport. Gauri. Vimal Prabhu, chapter 19, verse 1 and 2 translation and verse 2 purport.
In verse 1, Sukadev Goswami said, while returning home, the king Maharaj Parikshit felt that the act he had committed against the faultless and powerful Brahmana was heinous and uncivilized. Consequently, he was distressed. Text 2. The king Parikshit thought, due to my neglecting the injunction of the Supreme Lord, I must certainly expect some difficulty to overcome me in the near future. I now desire without reservation that the calamity come now, for in his way, for in this way, I may be freed of the sinful action and not commit such an offense again. Purport: the Supreme Lord enjoining that Brahmanas and cows must be given all protection. The Lord is himself very much inclined to do good to Brahmanas and cows. Maharaja Parikshit know all this, and thus he concluded that his insulting a powerful Brahmana was certainly to be punished by the law of the Lord, and he was expecting something very difficult in the very near future. He therefore desired to imminent calamity to fall on him and not on his family members. A man personal misconduct affects all his family members. Therefore, Maharaj Parikshit desired the calamity to fall on him alone. Personally, he would be restrained from future sins, and at the same time, in sin which he had committed would be con- contracted, so that his descendants would not suffer. That is the way a responsible devotee think. The family members of the devotee also share the effect of a devotee's service unto the Lord. Maharaja Prahlad saved his demon father by his personal devotional service. A devotee son in the family is the greatest boon or blessing of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Mm. Again, is a very important purport and the mood of a devotee. Parikshit Maharaj says, let this calamity fall on me alone, because I have offended the Lord by doing this heinous act. So Parikshit Maharaj is king, and as protector, Parikshit Maharaj has not followed the principles of religion. And exactly what Shivangi, Nitya, and few others were saying. Well, this act doesn't seem right, and therefore Parikshit Maharaj is now having a remorse. So Parikshit Maharaj is saying, let those difficulties fall upon me immediately, so that the sins can be washed. That if I go through the calamities, then I will not commit the sin again. And now this is very important point. This is the mood of a devotee, that I should go through the suffering instead of trying to counteract. Plus, this way, that if I get the suffering immediately right away on me, this way my family will not have to suffer. This is the mood of a devotee. This is also the dharma, that if father commits mistake, then yes, family will end up having something to suffer. But Parikshit Maharaj is teaching, let those calamities happen right away on me alone, so that my family is spared. Questions, comments, realizations? Gauri, you can now read 3 to 7 translations.
Text 7, Prabhuji.
From 3 to 7 translation.
3 to 7, please. Text 3. I am an uncivilized and sinful due to my neglect of Brahminical culture, God consciousness, and cow protection. Therefore, I wish that my kingdom, strength, and riches burn up immediately by the fire of the Brahmana's wrath, so that in future I may not be guided by such inauspicious attitudes. Text 4. While the king was just repenting, he received news of his imminent death, which would be due to the bite of a snake bird, occasioned by the curse spoken by the sage son. The king accepted this as good news, for it would be the cause of his indifference towards worldly things. Text 5. Maharaj Parikshit sat down firmly on the banks of the Ganges to concentrate his mind in Krishna consciousness, rejecting all other practices of self realization, because transcendental loving service to Krishna is the greatest achievement, superseding all other methods. Text 6. The river Ganges, by which the king sat to fast, carries the most auspicious water, which is mixed with the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord and tulsi leaves. Therefore, that water sanctifies the three worlds inside and outside, and even sanctifies Lord Shiva and other demigods. Consequently, everyone who is destined to die must take shelter of this river. Text 7. Thus the king, the worthy descendant of the Pandavas, decided once and for all, and sat on the Ganges bank to fast until death, and gave himself up to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, who alone is able to award liberation. So, freeing himself from all kinds of associations and attachments, he accepted the vows of a sage.
So, Parikshit Maharaj is thinking that the anger of Brahmana is actually a blessing. So many of you were asking, well, this act doesn't seem right. Well, look at the effect now here. Parikshit Maharaj is saying this is actually blessing, because Parikshit Maharaj says, that I was getting too much attached to these worldly things. Therefore, this is an opportunity and blessing for me to renounce the material world. Questions, comments, realizations? Matan Prabhu will read 8, 9, 10, 11 translations and then 11 purport.
Hare Krishna, verse 8. At the time, all the great minds and thinkers, accompanied by their disciples and sages who could verily sanctify a place of pilgrimage, yes, why their presence arrived there on the plea of making a pilgrim's journey. 9 and 10. From different parts of the universe, there arrived great sages like Atri, Syavana, Saravan, Aristan, Nemi, Burhu, Vasistha, Parasara, Viswamitra, Angira, Parasurama, Udaya, Indra, Pramada, Idmaha, Vahu, Madatidi, Tevala, Astistena, Bharadvaya, Kaudama, Pipala, Maitreya, Orva, Kavasa, Kumbhayoni, Dvaipayana, and the great personality Narada. Verse 11. There were also many other saintly demigods, kings, and special royal orders called Arunadas, a special rank of Rajasis from different dynasties of sages. When they all assembled together to meet the Emperor Parikshit, he received them properly and bowed his head to the ground. Purport. The system of bowing the head to the ground to show respect to superior is an excellent etiquette, which obliges the honored guest deep into the heart. Even the first grade offender is excused simply by this process. And Maharaja Pariksit, although honored by all the rishis and kings, welcomed all the big men in that humble etiquette in order to be excused from any offenses. Generally, at the last stage of one's life, this humble method is adopted by every sensible man in order to excuse before the departure. In this way, Maharaja Pariksit implored everyone's goodwill for going back home, back to Godhead. Hare Krishna.
So, Parikshit Maharaj is further teaching us that bowing down is the first sign of how great offender can be saved. So, if you take a humble position, anybody would generally try to forgive and just move on. And in the next verses 12 to 16 describes the mood of Parikshit Maharaj, the mood of a devotee. Malti, 12 to 16 translations.
Hare Krishna, text 12. After all the rishis and others had seated themselves comfortably, the king humbly standing before them with folded hands, told them of his decision of fast until death. Text 13. The fortunate king said, indeed, we are the most grateful of all the kings who are trained to get favors from the great souls. Generally, you sages consider royalty as refuge to be left in the distant place. Text 14. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the controller of both the transcendental and mundane worlds, has graciously overtaken me in the form of Brahmana's curse. Due to my being too much attached to family life, the Lord, in order to save me, has appeared before me in such a way that only out of fear I will detach myself from the world. Text 15. O Brahmanas, just accept me as a completely surrendered soul, and let Mother Ganges, the representative of the Lord, also accept me in the way for I have already taken the lotus feet of the Lord into my heart. Let the snake, bird, or whether magical thing that Brahmanas created bite me at once. I only desire that you all continue singing the deeds of the Lord Vishnu. Text 16. Against offering obeisances unto all you Brahmanas, I pray that if I should again take my birth in the material world, I will have complete attachment to the ultimate Lord Krishna. Krishna association with his devotees and friendly relations with all living beings. Hare Krishna.
So, when we are deciding or making important decisions, we should always cross-check with authority. This is the lesson. So in verse number 13, Parikshit Maharaj says the opulences are refuse, means opulences are garbage. In 14, he says that I was being too much attached to worldly things. And the Lord has appeared in front of me in form of a curse. This is the mood of a devotee. Lord takes direct action to bring the pure devotee back to him. And verse number 15 says that the atmosphere of the presence of great devotees of the Lord who continue the singing the glories of the Lord. So I am getting a favorable situation to leave the body in presence of devotees who are singing Krishna Katha. And in verse number 16, he says that if I take birth again, I should have complete attachment to the Lord and friendly to all living beings. So how to prepare for that is taught by Parikshit Maharaj, that you should leave the body in presence of devotees. You should be proud to be in association of devotees. Calamities are plan of the Lord to get a pure devotee back home to Godhead. So Parikshit Maharaj did not complain. The curse is making me become detached. This is the mood of Parikshit Maharaj, of a devotee. This is his thought process of a devotee, that accept the plan of the Lord with humility. And Parikshit Maharaj is sure to go back home to Godhead. He is a pure devotee. Still, Parikshit Maharaj is taking a humble position. Now here I will explain few practical points on the way to develop humility. That these topics are given for us to have a learning experience, that we as sadhakas can imbibe to the degree of practice. Otherwise, my humility is artificial, is just a show. I'm just verbalizing that I am humble. So how do you develop natural humility? Now, some devotees will pretend that they are at a very high platform. Oh, I am something. Oh, I am very humble. They verbalize, I am very humble. Well, that is not what humility is. True humility is in Parikshit Maharaj's mood. Parikshit Maharaj never will find fault in anyone, even when he was cursed by a Brahmana boy. He actually said, no, this is blessing. Parikshit Maharaj did not say that my entire family is devoted to you. Then why is this happening to me? No, Parikshit Maharaj did not complain. Parikshit Maharaj did not counter curse. This is the sign of humility. The first sign of humility is that you do not react. Otherwise, the humility is just artificial. The humility is just verbalizing. Now, even if you are not able to follow everything that we are learning and studying, but continue to practice. Just as in a cricket environment, many of us are from India, almost all of us are from India, we all know cricket, that generally the bowler wants to bowl a Yorker so that no run is scored, or at least the batsman gets out. Now the batsman, the bowler practices and practices and practices and practices till he becomes perfect. Say like Bumrah has very good Yorker, or Natarajan, or there are some cricketers who have very good Yorkers. Why? They keep practicing. So that's the learning for us, that we continue practicing till we perfect the natural humility. If our humility is artificial, then whenever there are calamities, we will find turbulences. When you actually start practicing humility, there will be a lot of turbulences from inside. And if you don't have those turbulences inside you, that means your humility is artificial. Well, you should have turbulences. Only then you can practice the tolerance. Now, if you know that I am not supposed to react, immediately you will realize turbulence, that why I should actually react, I have to counteract. That means that when you get this turbulence, means you are entering step number 1, that at least you are trying to be humble in a practical way. And then you will go on to the next step of not reacting. But the first turbulence has to come inside you. Otherwise, you are like a feelingless robot. And if you don't get those turbulences inside you, then your humility is artificial. Now realize that we will have to go through several attempts, just as I gave the cricket example. Now there is no magic number in terms of how many attempts one has to do. It depends on your individual circumstance and your individual severity of practice. That only when you realize that there is turbulence, and then you take the action of not reacting and understanding that this is the plan of the Lord, that's when you are moving in the proper direction of natural, actual humility. Otherwise, it is just artificial show. And Bhishma Dev, we have discussed in Canto 1, Chapter 9, Bhishma Dev says, even great souls do not know the plan of the Lord. Let me just not react. Something good will happen. So your commitment to follow this rule, say if it is 80%, then the result will also be 80%. If my commitment is low, say 30%, well, the result will also be 30%. Means when I am at 30% commitment level, then the then it will take longer to realize and come to the level of natural humility. Everybody on the same page about humility? We have a lot of practical points for us to practice. Nitya?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. It's a very, very good learning curve for us. So when we're discussing that the turbulences within ourselves, we're talking about the provocation, right? That we feel when we're offended, when we think somebody has committed an offense or defamation. We're talking about the turbulence within that we feel provoked, but then we tolerate it.
Yeah, you are correct. The provocation that somebody does something wrong to you, you should feel that somebody has done wrong to me. That we are, at least I am not a pure devotee. No, we are still sadhakas. So at sadhaka level, you cannot expect to have the reaction of a pure devotee. No, you should have that feeling. Somebody is doing wrong to me. You should have that feeling. Just don't react. Nitya?
Yes, Prabhu. Very valuable understanding.
Everybody on the same page? Lot of practical learnings? Yes, no, silence?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
So you understand, Bhagavatam is practice. From day one, I have said we will relish Srimad Bhagavatam. So there are so many learnings, not just theoretical learning, practical learning. Are you all relishing Srimad Bhagavatam?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Only few of you, okay?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Prabhu, may I ask one more follow-up question?
Yeah.
Prabhu, also you have mentioned that we believe in the plan of God and the results will be good. So even when we are faced with all this and the outcome, if we believe it will be good, will it always be good? Or will we sometimes have to really suffer? Or because we believe in this, we were turning to believe in this, we're changing our mindset. Will the result ultimately be some good?
Yeah, so I gave the example of 30% commitment and 80% commitment. So this 30% and 80% commitment is not verbal commitment. It's how much you are able to tolerate and how much you are able to practice, right? So Krishna does not reciprocate with your verbal commitment. He reciprocates with what actually is in your heart. We may not know what is in my heart, how dirty is my heart, but Krishna is sitting right in my heart. He can see that it is completely dark, filled with dirt and completely black. I may verbalize anything that I want, but he sees what actually is inside my heart and he reciprocates accordingly. So if you may still have to suffer based on your karma, if you are not fully surrendered to the Lord. If you are fully surrendered to the Lord, then the suffering, the karmic reaction don't matter. You will actually remember Krishna more and more and more. Nitya?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, it is true because it's the perception, and I think as we get purified and as we understand, our mindset changes. So even the suffering doesn't seem as it is. Yes, thank you.
All right. Who was the last one who read?
I read, Prabhuji.
All right. Matan Prabhu, 17 to 24 translations and then 24 purport. Now read faster pace. We want to finish this chapter.
Verse 17. In perfect self-control, Maharaja Pariksit sat down on a seat of straw with straw roots facing the east, placed on the southern bank of the Ganges, and he himself faced the north. Yes, previously he had given charge of his kingdom over to his son. Verse 18. Thus the king Maharaja Pariksit sat to fast until death. All the demigods of the higher planets praised the king's action and in pleasure continually scattered flowers over the earth and beat the celestial drums. 19. All great sages who were assembled there also praised the decision of Maharaja Pariksit, and they expressed their approval by saying, "Very good." Naturally, the sages are inclined to do good to common men, for they have all the qualitative powers of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, they were very much pleased to see Maharaja Pariksit, a devotee of the Lord, and they spoke as follows. Verse 20. O chief of all the saintly kings of the Pandu dynasty, who are strictly in the line of Lord Sri Krishna, it is not at all astonishing that you give up your throne, which is decorated with the helmets of many kings, to achieve eternal association with the personality of Godhead. Verse 21. We shall all wait here until the foremost devotee of the Lord, Maharaja Pariksit, returns to the supreme planet, which is completely free from all mundane contamination and all kinds of lamentation. Verse 22. All that was spoken by the great sages was very sweet to hear, full of meaning and appropriately presented as perfectly true. So after hearing them, Maharaja Pariksit, desiring to hear of the activities of Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, congratulated the great sages. Verse 23. The king said, O great sages, you have all very kindly assembled here, having come from all parts of the universe. You are all as good as supreme knowledge personified, who resides in the planet above three worlds, Satyaloka. Consequently, you are naturally inclined to do good to others, and but for this, you have no interest either in this life or in the next. 24. O trustworthy Brahmanas, I now ask you about my immediate duty. Please, after proper deliberation, tell me of the unalloyed duty of everyone in all circumstances, and specifically of those who are just about to die.
So this was 24. The Parikshit Maharaj is asking very important questions to the sages, that what is my immediate duty? Please explain after proper deliberation and tell me what is my unalloyed duty, not just me, but for everyone in all circumstances, and especially those who are about to die. So we'll read in the purport that all these sages, except Sukadev Goswami, what responses they give, and Parikshit Maharaj will be confused because they don't have one clear-cut answer. And then Parikshit Maharaj will repeat these same two questions to Sukadev Goswami. Matan Prabhu, 24 purport, faster pace.
Purport. The word Bhagavan is sometimes
24,
used in
24.
Okay, 24. Okay. So, 24 purport. In this verse, the king has placed two questions before the learned sages. The first question is, what is the duty of everyone in all circumstances? And the second question is, what is the specific duty of one who is to die very shortly? Out of the two questions, the question relating to the dying man is most important, because everyone is a dying man, either very shortly or after 100 years. The duration of life is immaterial, but the duty of dying man is very important. Maharaja Pariksit placed these two questions before Sukadeva Goswami also on his arrival, and practically the whole of the Srimad Bhagavatam, beginning from second canto up to the 12th canto, deals with these two questions. The conclusion arrived at thereof is that devotional service of the Lord Sri Krishna, as it is confirmed by Lord himself in the last pages of Bhagavad Gita, is the last word in relation to everyone's permanent duty in life. Maharaja Pariksit was already aware of this fact, but he wanted the great sages assembled there to unanimously give their verdict on his conviction, so that he might be able to go on with his confirmed duty without controversy. He has especially mentioned the word sutta, or perfectly correct. For transcendental realization or self-realization, many processes are recommended by various classes of philosophers. Some of them are first-class method, and some of them are second or third-class method. The first-class method demands that one give up all other methods and surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord, and thus be saved from all sins and their reactions.
So, Parikshit Maharaj asked these questions to the various sages who have assembled, and now sages are giving different opinions. Some are saying follow some particular yoga path, some are saying do some charity. So everybody is giving different prescriptions. And Parikshit Maharaj saying, well, I only have 7 days. What exactly do you want me to do? And the sages were not unanimous in their decision. They were all giving different prescriptions, saying, no, do this, no, do this, no, do this. And Prabhupada goes on to confirm, which is described in coming verses and throughout Srimad Bhagavatam, that the highest prescription, that the highest and the easier process is to attain the devotional service of the Lord. Now, at this time, when Parikshit Maharaj and the sages were having this discussion about the different prescription, this is the time Srila Sukadeva Goswami arrives at this scene. And this is also an important learning point about the spiritual master being sent by the Lord. It's the foundation is laid and it's coming up in upcoming verses. Shivangi, 25 translation purport, faster pace.
Hare Krishna, text 25 translation. At that moment there appeared the powerful son of Vyasadeva who travelled over the earth disinterested and satisfied with himself. He did not manifest any symptoms of belonging to any social order or status of life. He was surrounded with women and children, and he dressed as if others had neglected him. Purport. The word Bhagavan is sometimes used in relation with some of the great devotees of the Lord, like Shukadeva Goswami. Such liberated persons are disinterested in the affairs of this material world because they are self-satisfied by the great achievements of devotional service. As explained before, Shukadeva Goswami never accepted any formal spiritual master, nor did he undergo any formal reformatory performances. His father, Vyasadeva, was his natural spiritual master because Shukadeva Goswami heard Srimad Bhagavatam from him. After this, he became completely self-satisfied. Thus, he was not dependent on any formal process. The formal processes are necessary for those who are expected to reach the stage of complete liberation, but Sri Shukadeva Goswami was already in that status by the grace of his father. As a young boy, he was expected to be properly dressed, but he went around naked and was uninterested in social customs. He was neglected by the general populace, and inquisitive boys and women surrounded him as if he were a madman. He thus appears on the scene while traveling on the earth of his own accord. It appears that upon the inquiry of Maharaja Parikshit, the great sages were not unanimous in their decision as to what was to be done. For spiritual salvation, there were many prescriptions according to the different modes of different persons. But the ultimate aim of life is to attain the highest perfectional stage of devotional service to the Lord. As doctors differ, so also sages differ in their different prescriptions. While such things were going on, the great and powerful son of Vyasadeva appeared on the scene. Hare Krishna.
Shivangi can breathe for reading very fastly. So, as we read, that all sages were giving different prescriptions, just as doctors differ, and they were not unanimous. And this is when Sukadeva Goswami arrives at this scene. Sukadeva Goswami was completely satisfied. Sukadeva Goswami was not disturbed by children and women following him. When Sukadeva Goswami came, all stood up except Srila Vyasadeva, of course, because Srila Vyasadeva is Sukadeva Goswami's father as well as spiritual master. In verses 26 to 28, describes the physical appearance of Sukadeva Goswami. They are largely straightforward verses. Mayank Prabhu will read 26 to 33 translations and 33 purport.
Hare Krishna. This son of Vyasadeva was only 16 years old. His legs, hands, thighs, arms, shoulders, forehead, and the other parts of his body were all delicately formed. His eyes were beautifully wide, and his nose and ears were highly raised. He had a very attractive face, and his neck was well formed and beautiful like a conch shell. 27. His collarbone was fleshy, his chest broad and thick, his navel deep, and his abdomen beautifully stripped. His arms were long, and curly hair was strewn over his beautiful face. He was naked, and the hue of his body reflected that of Lord Krishna. He was blackish and very beautiful due to his youth. Because of the glamour of his body and his attractive smiles, he was pleasing to women. Though he tried to cover his natural glories, the great sages present there were all expert in the art of physio physiognomy, and so they honored him by rising from their seats. Text 29. Maharaja Parikshit, who is also known as Vishnurata, one who is always protected by Vishnu, bowed his head to receive the chief guest, Sukadev Goswami. At that time, all the ignorant women and boys ceased following Srila Sukadeva. Receiving respect from all, Sukadev Goswami took his exalted seat. Text 30. Sukadev Goswami was then surrounded by saintly sages and demigods, just as the moon is surrounded by stars, planets, and other heavenly bodies. His presence was gorgeous and he was respected by all. 31. The sage Sri Sukadev Goswami sat perfectly pacified, intelligent, and ready to answer any question without hesitation. The great devotee Maharaj Parikshit approached him, offered his respects by bowing before him, and politely inquired with sweet words and folded hands. The purport for this, right?
32, 33 translation, 33 purport.
Okay. 32. The fortunate King Parikshit said, O Brahmana, by your mercy only you have sacrificed us. You have sanctified us, making us like onto places of pilgrimage, all by your presence here as my guest. By your mercy, we who are but unworthy royalty become eligible to serve the devotee. Simply by our remembering you, our houses become instantly sanctified. And what to speak of seeing you, touching you, washing your holy feet, and offering you a seat in our home? Purport. The importance of holy places of pilgrimage is due to the presence of great sages and saints. It is said that sinful persons go to the holy places and leave their sins there to accumulate, but the presence of the great saints disinfects the accumulated sins, and thus the holy places continue to remain sanctified by the grace of the devotees and saints present there. If such saints appear in the homes of worldly people, certainly the accumulated sins of such worldly enjoyers become neutralized. Therefore, the holy saints actually have no self-interest with the householders. The only aim of such saints is to sanctify the houses of the householders, and the householders therefore should feel grateful when such saints and sages appear at their doors. A householder who dishonors such holy orders is a great offender. It is enjoined, therefore, that a householder who does not bow down before a saint at once must undergo fasting for the day in order to neutralize the great offense. Hare Krishna.
So basically, in all these verses, it explains that one should associate with pure devotee. And a lot of details about Sukadev Goswami is given, which you can also see on the screen, how he is seated in his exalted position, and everybody is eagerly listening, and Parikshit Maharaj is about to inquire. In the next few verses, Archana will read. It explains that Lord sends his representative, means Lord sends the spiritual master to the devotee when the devotee is ready to go back home to Godhead. Archana, 34, 35, 36 translation and 36 purport.
Hare Krishna. You want to read? Because? Text 34. Just as an atheist cannot remain in the presence of personality of a Godhead, so also the invulnerable sins of a man are immediately vanquished in your presence, O Saint, O great mystery. Text 35. Lord Krishna, the personality of a Godhead, who is very dear to the son of King Pandus, has accepted me as one of those relatives just to please his great cousin and brother. Text 36. Otherwise, without being inspired by Lord Krishna, how it is that you have voluntarily appear here, though you are moving incognito to the common man and are not visible to us who are on the verge of death. The purport too, na Prabhuji?
Yeah. 36 purport, yes.
Purport. The great sage Sukadev Goswami was certainly inspired by the Lord Krishna to appear voluntarily before Maharaj Parikshit, the great devotee of a Lord, just to give him the teaching of Srimad Bhagavatam. One can achieve the nucleus of the devotional service of the Lord by the mercy of a spiritual master and the personality of a Godhead. The spiritual master is the manifested representative of the Lord to help one achieve ultimate success. One who is not authorized by the Lord cannot become a spiritual master. Srila Sukadev Goswami is an authorized spiritual master, and thus he was inspired by the Lord to appear before Maharaj Parikshit and instruct him in the teaching of Srimad Bhagavatam. One can achieve the ultimate success of going back to Godhead if he is a favored by the Lord, sending his true representative. As soon as the true representative of the Lord is met by the devotee of the Lord, the devotee is assured a guarantee of going back to the Godhead just after leaving the present body. This, however, depends on the sincerity of devotee himself. The Lord is seated in the heart of all living beings, and thus he knows very well the moment of all the individual person. As soon as the Lord finds that particular soul is very eager to go back to Godhead, the Lord at once sends his bona fide representative. The sincere devotee is thus assured by the Lord of going back to the Godhead. The conclusion is that to get the assistance and the help of a bona fide spiritual master means to receive the direct help of the Lord himself. Hare Krishna.
So Lord sends his representative, the spiritual master, to the devotee as soon as the devotee is ready to go back home. This depends on the sincerity of the devotee. The Lord is seated within everyone's heart. As soon as the Lord finds a particular soul is very eager to go back home to Godhead, the Lord then sends his bona fide representative, meaning the spiritual master, the initiating spiritual master of the devotee. One cannot attain devotional service until one gets mercy of the spiritual master. So the learning from these verses and the purports, at least for me, is that I need to cultivate my sincerity for cultivating Krishna consciousness. Gauri has a question.
Prabhuji, was Parikshit Maharaj aware that Sukadev Goswami is his spiritual master when he appeared?
Yeah, for sure. And it will come up in the next two verses. And he already says, in the verses we read, he said that Lord has sent you, although you live in incognito. The Lord has sent you just to elevate us. It will go on to explain further. But yes, Parikshit Maharaj already knows that by this time that Sukadev Goswami is his spiritual master. All right. Parikshit Maharaj asked two very important questions. So what he already asked earlier, he will repeat these two very same important questions to Sukadev Goswami. Divya, 37-38 translations.
Hare Krishna, 37 translation. You are the spiritual master of great saints and devotees. I am therefore begging you to show the way of perfection for all persons, and especially for one who is about to die. Text 38 translation. Please let me know what a man should hear, chant, remember, and worship, and also what he should not do. Please explain all this to me.
Yeah, two very important questions. And you all should also ask the same two important questions to your spiritual master. That first is what to do, and second is what not to do. So he's asking, what should be the object of hearing? What I should chant, what I should worship, and what I should not do. So this what I should not do is also an important question. Both vidhi and nisheda, meaning do's and don'ts, are important to inquire from your spiritual master. So the answers to these two questions are explained throughout Canto 2 up to the end of Canto 12. In brief, in one-line answers to these two very important questions are that one should always chant and remember Krishna. And in terms of not doing, that one should not be too much involved in material things. The last two verses, 39, 40, are straightforward. Gauri, translations.
Yes, Praveen. 39 translation. O powerful Brahmana, it is said that you hardly stay on the houses of men long enough to milk a cow. Verse 40. Sri Sutta Goswami said, the king thus spoke and questioned the sage using sweet language. Then the great and powerful personality, the son of Vyasadeva, who knew the principles of religion, began his reply. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 5th canto, 19th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Appearance of Sukadeva Goswami.
Yeah,
End of the first canto.
Yeah, end of first canto, 19th chapter. All right. Questions, comments, realizations. Heavy discussion, important discussion, practical learnings for everybody.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes,
All right.
Yes.
Homework questions. Question number 1. List some of great advantages of the age of Kali. Comes from 18.7, chapter 18, verse 7. Second question. Why did the Lord arrange for a young boy to commit the offense? Comes from chapter 18, verse 47. Next question. What two questions does the king ask to the sages? Comes from chapter 19, verse 24, 37, and 38. All right. So in terms of the inquiries from last class, I will inquire at our upcoming class. Right now, I will share striking points. You have 4 slides. This is slide number 1 on the screen. Slide number 2. Number 3. And slide 4. So we have completed Canto 1. Thank you all for your patience. From next week, we'll be revising Bhagavad Gita, 2 chapters every week, where the process that we will follow is that we will first read the translations of Bhagavad Gita chapters, 1 chapter at a time. So we'll read chapter 1 translation, then devotees will do their respective presentation for the chapter. So for chapter 1, it is Pragya. So I have the schedule on the screen as well. Then after that after Pragya finished the presentation, then I will briefly do the presentation for chapter 1. Then we'll follow the same process for chapter 2, that we'll first read the chapter 2 translations. Then Shivangi will do chapter 2 presentation. And then I will do chapter 2 presentation. And then all of you should prepare all chapters. So it's not for just for the presenters. This revision is for everyone. We all discussed that we forget. Well, don't just show up to the class just to listen. No, you prepare. And how you know you have prepared is that after we finish each chapter, all devotees should have at least a striking point and an inquiry right at the class. You are not populating your striking point and inquiry on some Google form. No, this is live. You will ask and explain right there. So everyone should prepare. This is a revision for everyone. Everyone can do that, please.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Only few.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji.
All right, we are just past 9 a.m. here in Toronto time. We'll stop here. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna, thank